Looking after your mental health. So the contents of this particular book are as follows. There's 14 different areas that it talks about. So what is mental health? Inside your brain, how do you feel? Who are you? In the mirror, friends, family, sex and romance, on the internet, difficult times, mental health problems, depression and anxiety, eating disorders, and finding help. One of the best things I've seen in the book is a page that talks about mood spotting. So how do you feel? Actually getting somebody to identify how they actually feel, which isn't easy for young adults to do, I don't believe. Mood spotting. If you were blissfully happy all the time, you would never need to think about your feelings and put them into words. If you did, those words wouldn't make very interesting reading. Do any of these feelings match how you're feeling right now, or perhaps a combination of several? And it takes them through lots of different options for how they feel, and allows them to help them identify what particular mood that they're in at the time. Self-esteem. Self-esteem is the opinion we have of ourselves. High self-esteem doesn't mean that you're thinking you're the greatest human in the history of the planet. It just means that you believe you're important and worthwhile, which you are. Holding on to that belief can be difficult when life is turbulent. There are more tips for boosting your self-esteem on pages 50 to 51, but here's one thing to try if you ever start feeling bad about yourself. Ask yourself what you'd say to a friend who is feeling bad. If your friend said, "I'm worthless," you'd disagree with this and you'd probably say that they were great and wonderful. So why not treat yourself with the same kindness? Try to be a friend to yourself. Bereavement. One of the hardest things for a family to deal with is the death of a loved one. If someone close to you does die, it can help to allow yourself to feel upset. Pressing down and stopping sadness doesn't really help in the long run. Take time to understand and digest what has happened. Don't expect to feel better about it quickly. Over time, it will hurt less. Talk about the person who has died, or look at pictures and remember funny stories about them. It can be particularly sad or scary to see your parents or carers upset. Try to remember that it is not your responsibility to make them feel better. They're allowed to be sad for a while, just like you are. Talking together, making sure you eat, sleep and get fresh air, and trying to stay calm and relaxed might help a little. There's no right or wrong way to feel when someone dies. It is okay, and if you don't feel that sad, or if you don't really understand what's going on, it's also okay if you're really, really upset, or if you feel very angry. Everyone feels a little different when someone dies, and everyone deals with it differently. Great thing that I've found in this book is it also talks about relationships. Obviously, when we're getting to 11 and plus, things are changing, bodies are changing, moods are changing, hormones are changing, lots of different things are changing for children. And it talks about sort of what's a good relationship and what's a bad relationship. Again, just to give you an example, it says good relationships. Romantic relationships can come in many forms. Some are very casual and relaxed. Some are intense and full of emotion. There's no right way to have a relationship as long as it's equal and enjoyable. A good relationship is always based on respect. Bad relationships. Not all relationships are good. A range of things can make a relationship bad. Negative feelings such as anxiety and jealousy can take enjoyment away from a relationship. If you ever find yourself in a relationship where someone treats you badly, hurts you or controls you, or puts pressure on you to do things that you don't want to do, it's a bad relationship. In that case, for the sake of your physical and mental health, you should end it. Even if you think you're in love and still like some things about that person, the fact they do not treat you as an equal is dangerous. It goes on to talk about breakups, and how you should feel and process these losses. And you know, from a healthy relationship point of view, this is a great way to get them to view things from the very beginning and understand their feelings without having to figure it out for themselves. Really key thing for young people at the moment is communication on the internet. Now, especially during lockdown, the internet is a scary place. It can be unsecure. It can be a place where innocence and naivety is taken away in an instant. This book allows you as a parent to get them to understand, you know, social boundaries, what's acceptable, what's not. It talks about on the internet the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it explains that the internet is an amazing thing for finding out information, connecting with the rest of the world, and watching videos of animals sneezing. If you use it carefully, it can be really positive resource. It can be a really positive resource, and something you'll probably need almost every day throughout your life. I think that's the thing as well. We as adults and parents have to accept that children, we're in a fast-paced moving world, that children are going to be on the internet all the time. How do we as parents try and control their exposure, try and help them understand quicker to get ahead of whatever they need to get ahead of when they are dealing with the internet and others on the internet? So the bad. Unfortunately, the internet isn't amazing all of the time. Spending a lot of time on social media and comparing your life to the lives you see portrayed on there can have a negative impact on your mental health, especially while you're growing up. This chapter will go through some of the risks associated with life online, particularly social media, and give you tips on how to use the internet sensibly and healthily, and how to get the most out of it. The internet also contains some seriously bad things, from dangerous to illegal. Though you don't have to be worried about them, and you may never come across them, it's worth being aware of them to help you protect yourself. I think that really sums up this book as a whole. As parents, we can say, ignore it, don't bring it up, don't talk about it. But unless they're aware of it, how do they know how to manage it when it happens? And I say when it happens because as we move along in this really fast-paced world that we're living in, it is the likelihood of them having exposure is going up and up and up and up and up. Particularly in lockdown, because that's now one of the only forms of communication that people have. We are in a place where we need to be equipping our young adults with tools to be able to deal with whatever they come across. It touches on briefly cyberbullying. So what is cyberbullying? Cyberbullying includes sending cruel, nasty or humiliating messages, either privately or publicly on public pages, forwarding embarrassing videos or photos onto people, giving out someone's personal details such as their address or phone number without their permission. This is sometimes known as doxing. Sending unwanted sexual messages or images to people. Making abusive comments about someone, including homophobic, racist, transphobic or sexist comments. There are other ways to cyberbully someone as well. If anyone does or says anything to you online that makes you feel uncomfortable or hurts your feelings, then you should take action. And then finally, towards the end of the book, it assists children or young adults in identifying a mental health problem, if there is a mental health problem. So it's things like what does anxiety feel like? What does depression look like? You know, how can you identify it? What triggers will there be if you know, what will you feel if this is something that is a potential problem? It really illustrates really well what things feel and look like. So take anxiety, something that adults all across the land deal with. You know, if you think about how difficult it is for an adult to deal with anxiety, just imagine how that may feel for a young adult living in the world that we're living in today, with the pressures of social media, with the pressures of exams, with the pressures of lockdown. Anxiety is not something to be scoffed at, or it's hard to live with. Talking from experience, it can be debilitating. and it's something that we need to equip our children with to deal with should this ever arise. So what does anxiety feel like? It feels like something heavy sitting on your chest, making it hard to breathe. People on your shoulders and in your brain shouting loud things at you all the time. Something twisting your heart and all of your insides. So what symptoms of anxiety do you see? So below are the symptoms that doctors look for. Shortness of breath, nightmares, shaking, difficulty swallowing, sweating, feelings of dread, tense muscles, unable to sleep, crying, headache, fidgeting, sweating. You know, I mean, as an adult, just reading some of the things in here, I'm learning things about, you know, anxiety or different mental health disorders that I didn't know anything about. So what we're doing is just allowing our young adults of tomorrow the understanding. How can we, so different types of anxiety: generalized anxiety, separation anxiety, social anxiety. So again, they can try and understand whether this is something that applies to them or not. It may well be that it's something that will never apply to them, but maybe they can identify it in their friends. Maybe they can read this and be aware of it so they can be kinder to others that do have those issues. This book isn't necessarily there for someone who has present mental health concerns and issues. These are tools that we are giving our children to be able to identify, understand, overcome, be empathetic, be kind about different mental health issues that are out there. It's a fantastic learning resource for children, this book, and it's something that I think we could have done with when we were younger. You know, I'm sure there was resources out there, but again, it wasn't a topic that was widely discussed. You know, we're great about talking about our physical health, but definitely not so much our mental health. You know, this young person's guide is just a great way to explain why we have emotions and how we can influence them, and how we can deal with the real life issues. You know, bereavement, divorce, family problems, stress, strain. These are all things that are present in every single family that's out there. It's untrue and it's not real if you say that it isn't. So why not give your child the tools to be able to deal with that? It doesn't necessarily even have to be the death of a loved one. It could be a pet. It could be, you know, ultimately things like that can really affect people. And if we don't allow children time to grieve and feel and give them the tools to overcome it, how will they do it? You know, ultimately we're trying to ask them to do something that we've not prepared them for. So this is definitely one to consider. It's aged at 11 and up, and it's one that I would recommend getting for any young adult that's in your life to equip them with what they need to overcome these types of issues.